This is City Focus, the podcast from the League of Oregon Cities, where we explore the issues that matter to cities across Oregon.
Mayor Cathy Clark is an unwavering champion for her community, a leader in the Mid-Willamette Valley and among mayors across the state. During her years on the Keizer City Council, including her time as mayor, Mayor Clark has successfully led efforts to launch a local library initiative, improved miles of streetscape, and helped develop a new civic and event center. She led the charge in 2017 to create stable funding for parks and police services and has responsibly directed public resources to homeless programs that have made measurable impacts. Regionally, Mayor Clark has helped improve both the economy and transportation systems and to end homelessness in the Mid-Willamette Valley. She has held key leadership positions with the League of Oregon Cities, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, and the Salem-Keizer MPO. Mayor Clark has worked tirelessly to preserve the home rule authority of cities in Oregon. Her efforts have directly contributed to the development of transportation funding packages and increased intergovernmental cooperation. Mayor Clark epitomizes selfless, ethical service, always placing the interests of her city and others above her own. Congratulations, Mayor Cathy Clark, City of Keizer, winner of the James C. Richards Award. I recently sat down with Mayor Clark for a personal conversation about what receiving the James C. Richards Award means to her, the path she's traveled in her local government journey, the good and the challenging things about Keizer, and what she sees on the horizon for her community. Cathy, welcome to City Focus.
Thank you so much for having me, Denise. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's always good to have you. I wanted to kind of touch base with you and kind of catch up with you. In the fall at our annual conference, you were the recipient of a prestigious LOC award. And I wanted to kind of, get a sense from you what that award meant to you. It was the James C. Richards Award, and you were awarded that at our banquet there. I had the pleasure of being able to do the voiceover for that, to talk about your many accomplishments and why you won that award. But what did that mean to you, getting that award from your peers, basically?
Well, exactly that. And thank you so much. That was a very moving and touching and humbling experience to be nominated for and then to be recognized with that award. I've watched people over the years who have received that award. There are people I look up to. There are people who have been examples of what it means to really grab a hold of municipal government and make that your focus, serving the people of your community, and to be recognized as someone who is moving in that area, who is working to achieve those kinds of goals is absolutely overwhelming. And it also inspires me to keep going with what I'm doing and to make sure that I do for others what people did for me. And that's to continue to pass it on, encourage the people who are entering into city service to make that their focus. There's nothing more humbling than to be elected to lead your city by your neighbors.
Yeah.
These are your family members, your neighbors, the people that you work and shop and play and recreate, worship, and spend time with. And when they say, yes, we want you to be doing this work, boy, I'll tell you, you want to take it very, very seriously and do the very, very best. Other levels of government are very important as well. But to me, there's not a higher honor than to be elected to serve in my own community, in my own city, to help shape our future.
That's a great distinction because, I talk about, too, that level of government is really the closest to the people. And I mean, your city councilors, mayors have a direct effect on the lives of their constituents and the people put them in there. And many of them come up through neighborhood associations, things like that. I wanted to find out from you, kind of what was your path to serving? I know you were a city councilor, but before that, how did your life kind of meander and find its way to where you are now, Keizer Mayor?
So when we were living in Corvallis, I started getting involved with the League of Women Voters. And that was a wonderful opportunity to meet women leaders who were very involved with understanding and researching issues and then taking well-informed positions. So I was mentored by women who understood good public policy process. When my husband and I moved to Keizer 30 years ago, I continued to be involved. And because of that, when an opportunity came up for me to get involved with a task force about backyard burning, I showed up. And that was my first foray into Keizer city government. When we moved there, I didn't realize what a young city Keizer was. Yeah. It was only 7 years old. It was a baby. And I had the chance to work under the leadership of the late former counselor, Jerry McGee.
Mm-hmm.
And what I loved about that, again, just like the League of Women Voters process of studying an issue and understanding it thoroughly, he took it from soup to nuts. We have to stop backyard burning, but how do we get to a solution for the materials that need to be dealt with?
Wow.
Hence the green cans that we have now for composting. But through that process, I really got involved, and I was very impressed with how Keizer is about community and problem solving and being very practical. So I got involved with community policing, then I got involved in budget, and then 2 city councilors recruited me to run for their seats. Jackie Moyer was the one who was successful in asking me to run for her seat, and in 2006 I put in to run for city council.
Okay, so it's been since 2006. Keizer's such a unique community, too. I mean, it's very, very, the spirit of volunteerism in Keizer is amazing. It's very close-knit. It's about, 38,000 people?
Approximately, yes.
So it still has that small town feel, but there's something very special about Keizer. It's hard to kind of, I know other people have talked about it, but can you kind of explain what it is, what you think makes Keizer that unique community that it is?
It's because of community.
Yeah.
People are very involved, very connected. People feel a real sense of ownership of our community, that it is us who will tell the story, get the work done, and make the difference. That pride, spirit, and volunteerism, those are not just words on a wall. Those are actions and values of our community. That's what takes a community of 38,000 plus people and makes it still feel like a small town, even though we are the 13th largest city in the state of Oregon. So I went to school with people who are from much smaller towns, truly small towns, 200, 300 in the entire town.
Wow.
So when we have that feel of I can go to the store, I can go visit the doctor, the dentist, other services, and there are people that we have been together for years doing life. That creates that sense of relationship and community that makes Keizer really unique. And we want to continue that, have it strong for the next generation. And that is part of what I believe is going to be the work of the council and me going forward into 2020 and beyond.
So you've been mayor for how long now?
I'm beginning my 6th year, which is halfway through my 3rd term.
2-year terms.
2-year terms.
So, 2019 was challenging for many people on the state level. The legislative session was a challenge. And from the city's perspective, in the League of Oregon Cities, we had certain priorities and things like that. Anything in Keizer for 2019 that was, let's go first with particularly challenging and then kind of a highlight for you as well, sort of, 2 sides of that.
We had a lot of things moving through Keizer. One of the issues that we have is that we are constrained in terms of growth. We have virtually no land to expand because we share an urban growth boundary with Salem. So we have to be very creative about how we use our land. We also have to be really thoughtful about what data we need for expansion, in what way, time, manner, place, etc. So we have both of those dynamics going on right now. We are in the process of a series of studies to get us that data. Whatever we do, we want to make sure it's community involved and very data driven. Not, well, I think I know what we need, or I guess. That's expensive. And it's disruptive.
Yeah.
So we have completed our visioning document for the city of Keizer. We did our buildable lands inventory, housing needs analysis. We had to press pause on that a little bit because we really didn't have alternatives to put in there that are required. What are we going to do? Well, we have no land. And we don't have tax incentives. We don't have other tools available to us to incentivize the construction of housing on land that virtually does not exist.
Yeah.
The third piece that we have just completed is a relook at our River Road Cherry main corridors. And the result of that study and the changes in our development code took all of the commercial property in that area and made it mixed use. So rather than having a patchwork quilt of zoning, we've now simplified all of that. If you're residential in that zone, you are still residential. We don't want to lose housing. If you are commercial in that zone, you are now uniform in mixed use. That's going to make it easier for property owners and people who are looking to redevelop properties to assemble pieces to do redevelopment, which is basically what has to happen. We have very few blank lots.
So that means building up.
Yes.
At that point. So you could have retail on the bottom. I know Salem is doing a lot of that as well. Mm-hmm. Retail on the bottom, residential, condos, things like that. And people like that sort of downtown. Keizer doesn't necessarily have a downtown per se. Or do you? River Road it doesn't have that walking feel really to it. Is that, are you looking to change that or?
We are.
Yeah.
Within this River Cherry Overlay District is what it's called. Mm-hmm. We identified 3 activity centers. So rather than one downtown, we have 3 centers centered at River Road and Log Haven, River Road and Shamawa, and River Road to Cherry along Sam Orchid Way.
Okay, yeah.
So those 3 activity centers, we want to densify the redevelopment in those areas so it is even more concentrated.
Yeah.
More housing opportunities, more business, retail, office types of opportunities within those centers. Those can be more concentrated and walkable within those, as well as connecting the spaces between with sidewalks, bike lanes, or bike opportunities. There's a whole nother discussion about River Road and bike lanes. We just don't have the space to expand River Road unless we purchase all the buildings on one side of the road.
Oh, yikes.
With that, we are looking at some alternatives to accommodate all modes. So that moved forward, that has been adopted, and we are now encouraging property owners, the development community, to really look at what are the opportunities now that exist in Keizer that will help enhance the use of the land we have within our urban growth boundary. So taking the challenge from 2019, that now rolls into an opportunity in 2020 and beyond.
So do you have a sense of populations going to be growing in Keizer? I know Salem's projecting large growth in there. I'm assuming Keizer would be looking at large growth too. It's a desirable place to live.
We are highly desirable, partly because of our accessibility to I-5, since we have people moving
and
here.
And you have an In-N-Out burger.
And we have In-N-Out. Oh, my goodness.
That's right. That's it.
2019 was the challenge with when In-N-Out Burger announced that they were coming.
Yep.
The anticipation all year long was,
my goodness.
When are they opening? When are they opening? What do you know? Do you know? And it got to the point where I finally said, folks, they're not talking to me. They're not talking to the city council. And our staff has been our staff has worked very, very hard to make sure they comply to the letter with every single confidentiality agreement in place with In-N-Out Burger, which meant they didn't tell us. So we could say with real honesty, look straight at the camera and say, I don't know.
Which could make it interesting for planning, but I think kudos, and I heard a lot of compliments. Yes, the lines were long, but the way you guys sort of got in front of it and planned for it to kind of have everybody kind of go down to Volcano Stadium and the way it was, I didn't hear any complaints.
I didn't either.
Amazing.
Well, and considering some of the long lines, the first couple weekends got to be 4 hours in waiting.
That's what I heard.
But because of the partnership, and thank you to Jerry and Lisa Walker, the owners of the Volcanoes, for being willing to partner with In-N-Out Burger and Keizer Station to allow staging to happen in the stadium parking lot, was brilliant.
Yeah.
It made Keizer Station accessible for the holiday shopping.
Right.
It kept the traffic flowing safely, and it made sure that people who got in line got their burgers in the order in which they arrived.
Yep.
And anybody who tried to queue jump was very firmly but politely directed down there.
Excellent. Follow the rules. I have to imagine Keizer Station retailers, this had to have been a boon for them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I haven't heard numbers yet, but I did hear
interesting to get those numbers.
That it was very, very busy. I know I was among the shoppers. Initially, some people stayed away because of fears about the traffic, but once the word got out that this plan was working, people came back in droves. And the weekend before Christmas, let me tell you, I was there along with everybody else trying to shop, and it was busy. The shops were full, and that was great for the Keizer Station businesses and our regional businesses in general.
Cool.
And people felt welcome. We rolled out the welcome mat. We're having a good time. Way to go. Welcome In-N-Out Burger to the Keizer family of businesses.
Yeah.
And they're a good fit.
Yeah, they are. I have yet to go out there. I don't live in Keizer, so I haven't been out there. I'm hearing that the lines are getting shorter. They're steadily coming down. So one of these days I will get out there, because I've never had an In-N-Out burger. So I know.
Study the menu. Pick out how you want it.
Animal style.
I like the protein style with the lettuce wrap. It's like, oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm all over it.
I got to get out there. So that was one of the big highlights, towards the end of 2019. 2019. So now we're in 2020. 2020, we're here we are. There's a short session coming up, so there's going to be ramifications and things coming down from the legislature that are going to impact cities. What, you're looking in your crystal ball for Keizer. What do you see? Again, same question, challenges and opportunities. What's kind of like right at the forefront of your radar right now as we head into the new year?
One of the challenges that got introduced to Keizer through the legislature was the House bill that sent the rent controls.
Oh, yes.
So one of the problems is that many landlords felt like, well, if I don't raise it now, I'm not going to have the opportunity in the future. We're already a severely rent-burdened city. It didn't help.
Yeah.
Some people who were on the fringes had difficulties. I know that they've been accessing social services within our city.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, because we have an incredibly low unemployment rate, we have more and more people whose wages are coming up or household incomes that are coming up. So actually, our severely rent-burdened city percentage dropped from about 27 range to 25% range.
Okay.
Still not acceptable.
Yeah.
Not acceptable. 2020, what we're looking for, we're hoping that some of the work that we've done on the planning side will now open up opportunity for more housing to be constructed. There are projects that are already coming online for additional housing. So try to relieve some of that market pressure to help bring the numbers down, to continue to grow wages and jobs in our region as more and more people are entering the workforce.
Yeah.
One of the wonderful things that is happening in terms of workforce development is that our businesses are working very hard with social services to break down barriers to employment for people who have had barriers between them for a number of reasons, from having prior incarceration to disabilities of various kinds to changes in their life, divorce, children getting older, any one of a number of things. And our employers are now seeing that there are people who could be fantastic employees if they do away with some of the old notions of what made qualified or disqualified somebody from employment. So that's helping broaden the opportunities of employment across our region. That's a plus going forward in 2020 for Keizer and Salem and the Marion County area. So as more and more people are entering into the workforce, we're able to target more and more of our resources, especially for the families that are struggling.
Yeah.
And especially for people who are very vulnerable in our community, to really target meaningful and effective solutions, partnerships, relationships to help people be on track to be fully participating in our community.
And then that's to get them, if they're right on the edge, and you want to keep them from going over the edge. And that to me seems, it makes a lot of sense to me logically to wrap around those people so they don't fall into homelessness.
Yes.
At that point, to pull them back and to give the services and to make sure that they don't.
And that's already been in place. Data has shown us that they're considered what's called rapid rehousing. And some of them will just, because they have the social network, they have some resources, they have skills, and they're considered low barrier. They're more likely to rapidly rehouse if they do end up homeless for a short period of time. So it doesn't take a tremendous amount of resources to help cushion in that space. That's not to say that it doesn't happen, that you don't have families that are camping in cars and things like that. We do have to make sure that we have addressed any barriers that do exist for families and individuals that can be rapidly rehoused, because the bulk of the cost to our community is those who are chronically homeless, who have chronic health, mental health, and addiction needs. They are the high utilizers of very expensive systems. They are the ones who have the least social capital, resources available to be able to address their long-term needs. And we want to make sure that we are addressing the variety and the range of services necessary to bring in and sustain people at a much, much lower cost. When you have someone who is utilizing emergency services for everything, you're talking upwards of $80,000 a year to maintain them. If you have someone in supportive housing with services, your price tag drops closer to below $20,000. So just doing the math alone, it is worth investing appropriately in services and supports that help a person come into and then sustain in whatever supportive service is necessary for them to make progress in their lives. So that has been controversial. Some people said housing first, not housing first.
Yeah.
But it's not so much the housing. It's all that goes with it. You can hand somebody a key.
Right.
And they're not going to know what to do with it.
Yes.
Because they need other support services as well. One of the efforts that began 4 years ago under the leadership of former Commissioner Janet Carlson from Marion County, Polk County, former Mayor Anna Peterson of Salem, and myself was the Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative.
Yes.
And we did a podcast, I believe it was last year, talking about how this evolved. And I would encourage
I'll link
listeners
up to that. Yeah, to revisit that one. Yes, that was the conversation between you and Janet Carlson.
So let me update from where we left off from there.
Yeah.
Over this last year, 2019 saw the evolution of the Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative into the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. Now, it sounds like just a name change, big deal. Actually, it was much more than that.
Okay.
Because of the collaboration that we have gotten now and the communication and the data that we have to understand the real needs of people in our community who are vulnerable and homeless, we've been able to coalesce organizations, services, government, nonprofit, faith community around those various groups of vulnerable individuals to begin increasing services, provide services where were none, and look at long-term sustainable funding. One of those efforts, based on the work of the Homeless Initiative, was to assess whether or not we needed to reestablish our own continuum of care, COC, under Housing and Urban Development, which is a federal program. With the help of this administration, we were able to get information about what that would look like for Marion and Polk counties. We had the data thanks to the Oregon Housing and Community Services and our Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency. And the bottom line of the data was, yes, we need to pull Marion and Polk counties out, reestablish our continuum of care so we can focus efforts on bringing in the appropriate level of dollars to fund the necessary services. Again, moving from the emergency services costing $80,000 plus to sustained success and alleviation of our chronic needs. Because of the work of Janet Carlson and our other contractor, Jan Calvin, working with the Development Council that included the two cities, Salem and Keizer, Monmouth Independence, the school district, Union Gospel Mission, Community Action Agency, and some others, and I'm missing a couple of key players, and I apologize for that. But because of that, when the application was turned in on December 5th, that application was turned around and approved in 6 days.
Wow.
6 days. On December 11th, we were notified that our application to approve our continuum of care had been approved. The folks at HUD worked very closely with us. They were there to answer questions, to make sure we had everything we needed. And then Jan and Janet, with the direction of the Development Council, had a very, very comprehensive and well-constructed application. 6 days. We are now approved.
That's outstanding.
It is game-changing.
Yeah.
Marion County and Salem have fallen so far behind in funding for appropriate services. And in this work, we now know how we got here. We now know what we need to do. But as we can see on the streets of our cities, we know we have a long way to go.
Right.
But we are moving forward. We now know what we're doing. We're getting things lined up to provide appropriate services and to make sure that people who are in need in our community, their needs are offered to be met. And we will continue to persist in building relationship until everyone who is vulnerable, who is chronically ill, is in that space they need to be in for their own well-being and for the health and well-being of our community. So the challenge for Keizer and our partner with Salem this year is to continue to execute on all of these initiatives that are moving forward in collaboration. We're not infighting. We are collaborating, and we are delivering more and more every single day Every day that we wait, it's another difficult thing to deal with, but we are moving forward. And I encourage everyone to help us move down the field with more and more people being brought into community, into services with the dignity and respect that every human being deserves.
Amen. And I'm glad you mentioned, because it is people are seeing it. It seems over the past couple of years, the problem has gotten much more visible. Cities are having a challenge. Salem has been dealing with it. Keizer, as we wrap up on this episode of the podcast, you have been in the news. Keizer City Council has dealt with this. If you want to just kind of update our listeners on what you guys did and where you're going to go moving forward.
So Monday night, the Keizer City Council took up deliberations and passed unanimously an ordinance to amend our existing ordinances regarding accessibility and the use of our rights of way in our parks. We already had ordinances on the books that prohibits camping in our parks except under a special permit, an event permit that has appropriate safety, security, and sanitation.
Sure.
We had already had a lengthy and in-depth conversation and passed an ordinance about keeping our rights of way, particularly our sidewalks, obstruction-free because we need them ADA accessible.
Yes.
At that point, the controversy was people putting sports equipment like basketball hoops in the middle of sidewalks and leaving them there ad nauseum. Even though the kids had grown and they already had grandkids, those basketball hoops were still obstructing sidewalks. Those now need to be moved because sidewalks are so people can walk on the side.
Right.
But we need them accessible for all people. So what we did was we enhanced and added some language to make the intent clear that this is about safety, security, accessibility. It's about making sure that our public spaces are used as they are designed. We wanted to make sure that if somebody challenged what we already had on the books, that intent was clear and that we were in compliance with the Boise decision that dealt with the criminalization of being homeless. And that is something that Keizer would never, ever do. We did add a citation capability, and that is a last resort. It's in the back pocket if really necessary. Yeah. And our judge has the full flexibility to be able to waive that if it gets to that point. But our police, they know the members of our community who are homeless. They know them by name. They know what their needs are. They're continuing to offer services and assistance. And let me finish with an example.
Okay.
We had a gentleman come as we'd had a fabulous community conversation about how Keizer is a caring community, an action community, and we want to make sure that people understand that we are about building relationship and community. So a gentleman asked to testify. I invited him forward, and he said that 7 years ago, he and his wife were on the streets, had been for 7 years, and were meth addicts. Before me sat a gentleman who is now a pastor. His wife has a master's in counseling from Corbin Christian University.
Wow.
They are homeowners. They are contributing to our community. They are reaching out to people who are where they were and helping give them hope. And what they said was there was a Keizer police officer who kept reaching out to them, Officer Hill, I believe they said his name was, and kept saying, "You're better than this. You are better than this." And he gave them hope. And then Arches, the community action agency, they had programs in place. And when they were ready to say yes, Arches was ready and there for them. And through the help and support that they got, they have now been clean and sober. But more than that, they have been succeeding and living and thriving and giving in our community. That's what hope does. That's what being practical in our giving and our caring does. And he said, it worked for us. It will continue to work for people in our community.
That's a wonderful story. I'm so glad you shared that. And I can't think of a better note to end on than that story. I want to thank you, Keizer Mayor Cathy Clark, for coming in and visiting with us and sharing your personal story and all the good things that are happening in Keizer.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. As always, thank you for listening to City Focus. Be sure to check out show notes for a link to episode 15 of the podcast featuring Mayor Clark and former Marion County Commissioner Janet Carlson discussing the Mid-Willamette Valley Homelessness Initiative. My name is Denise Nanke, and I'm the host and producer of City Focus, a podcast from the League of Oregon Cities. The League is a governmental entity formed to work with our members to help local government better serve the citizens of Oregon. LOC strives to be the go-to place for Oregon cities as a resource hub for advocacy, education, and best practices. While our focus is Oregon and Oregon issues, we realize that we have many issues in common across the country. We hope that this podcast will reach beyond the borders of our state to share ideas and solutions. If you have suggestions for topics or comments about any of our podcasts, send me an email at cityfocus@orcities.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast to get notification when we publish new content.